Hello, everybody. My name is Toby, or De Tobster. I am the coach of the Sunny Shore Star Raptors, and welcome to my GLDL Season 6 draft analysis. We are fucking back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the first little bit of content that I'm going to be sending your way for your eyes, your viewing pleasure, as we posted that little talk the other day, and now I've realized I really do want to be doing this content again. So enjoy this first little bit. This is the starting point, just because it kind of feels like the low-hanging fruit, the easy one to do, because GLDL Season 6 has just started. The draft has just finished, so everybody's prepping and reviewing their teams and getting ready to go for the first week of the season. So I figured this is a good way to not only kind of get myself into the headspace of using this team, but also show you guys and explain to you guys kind of what my team has going on and what my thought process was while drafting it, and kind of the ideas I have about how this team is going to function in the main season and how it stands out among the rest of the other teams. So we're going to go ahead and get into that right now. Okay, so before we get into each individual member of my team and start diving into the draft process that I had, we need to talk about how the draft itself works. That way there's no confusion as we go down into my team. So basically, GLDL is your standard VGC draft league, probably one of the most influential in the community. And it is ran, owned, and operated by that sexy hunk of meat down there, Samuel Wakeman. Look at him with his little Cinderace minifigure. He's so fucking cute. Wakeman. What was I talking about? Oh, right. So how the draft works. So GLDL's draft this Season 6 is about the same as it always does. Standard snake draft, where you start with one person, go down the list in a defined order, and then go all the way back up, you know, standard snake bullshit. And you got 3 hours before each pick. You have a 3-hour timer to make each pick before you get skipped and moved on to the next person or whatever. The tiering budget for this season was 1 Tier 1 Pokemon, a Tier 2, 2 Tier 3s, 2 Tier 4s, a Tier 5, a Tier 6, with 130 free agent points, which you could draft 4 other Pokemon from any tier that you like, as long as it adds up to 130 or less. The division I'm placed in this time, Basket Legion division, the Open Terra division, was divided up into 18 people, so I got 16th pick as well. So my thought process going into the draft when I found out I was 16th was that is pretty close to a wheel pick. I can pretty reliably get double picks of things that I really want and need, as long as I pay attention to the two people after me, 16th and 17th, see what picks they're making to make sure that there's nothing that's going to conflict with my team. Basically kind of predict what kind of team they're going to be drafting and draft my picks accordingly in order to not get sniped on the way back up in the wheel when it turns around. And I think I did that pretty well, which we'll get into here in a second. But my ultimate goal with this draft was I wanted to do something that I hadn't done before. We're like a year and a half, 2 years into Gen 9 VGC at this point, and I kind of feel like I've been doing the same thing over and over again with no real switch ups. I mean, there's been DLC that's come out, new mons and moves and abilities and blah blah blah, but I don't really feel like I've switched up my playstyle very much. I don't really feel like I've switched up the kinds of teams that I drafted, so I kind of wanted to experiment a little bit. And again, same thing with like trying to do really successful picks at 16th pick. I think I did pretty well in that aspect, which we're going to get into right now. So coming in for my Tier 1 pick, my first pick, I chose Urshifu Rapid Strike. And Urshifu Rapid Strike is a water and fighting type Pokemon with notable moves of Surging Strikes, Close Combat, Aqua Jet, U-Turn, Iron Head, the Elemental Punches, Stone Edge, Poison Jab, and a few others, but I don't want to list every single one on here because we'd be here all day. Urshifu was an excellent excellent physical attacker, some decent speed tiers, relatively usable bulk, which is honestly not something that I think about Urshifu having very often. So that was a nice surprise when I was looking at it. And I drafted Urshifu specifically because I have actually never drafted Rapid Strike before. And I don't really know how I haven't, but I was talking to Toxic Crusader, a few days ago, and he was like, you know, you glaze Urshifu a lot, and you defend them very, very often in discussions when people are hating on them, yet I've literally never seen you draft or use Urshifu. What's up with that? Are you a fake fan? And obviously I took that personally. So I had to draft Urshifu here to prove a point, but not just to prove a point. I mean, look at this thing. It's insane. 130 physical attack, 97 speed, decent usable HP and defense. Special defense is a little on the weak side, but that's calcable, it's usable. Urshifu's signature move, Surging Strikes, hits 3 times. It's always a critical hit every time it hits, and it goes through Protect. That's huge. That's huge stuff. This thing can sit on the field and attack and not worry about protects. I don't have to read a protect. I don't have to try to play in and pivot around mons based on if I think that they're going to try to nullify damage into it for a turn, because Urshifu just ignores that. And that's so nice, honestly. I honestly, again, don't know how I avoided picking up this mon for so long. Like, truly, it kind of boggles my mind that honestly, throughout pretty much all of Generation 8 and all of Generation 9, I never picked this mon up. And I'm very glad that I'm doing it here, because it is setting the stage for some really good stuff here down the line. But yeah, that's Urshifu Rapid Strike. I think it's a good pick. I think it's going to do insane work for me this season. That physical attack, those signature moves, decent coverage, good speed tiers, that's scarfable, that's tailwindable, we can do some good stuff with that. Yeah. The only thing about Urshifu is that it can't do everything on its own. It's going to need a lot of support, it's going to need a lot of things to back it up. Which is why we're going to get to my second pick right now. The first Pokemon that is going to help Urshifu go the distance this season. So, coming in at my Tier 2 slot, or my mandatory Tier 2 slot, and my second pick overall in the draft, we have Politoed. And Politoed is just a straight water type. It's got abilities of Drizzle, Damp, Water Absorb. You're probably going to be using Drizzle most of the time, especially on this team, but I guess there's a usage case for Water Absorb in some instances. Though I don't really think they'll be very often. I think normally we're going to have Drizzle on the field. But it's got some pretty good moves that it can utilize, especially next to Urshifu. We've got Muddy Water and Weather Ball, Encore, Helping Hand, Haze, Icy Wind, Earth Power, and Chilling Water. Those are all pretty good utility moves. Muddy Water is a good one that lowers accuracy, especially, and under rain, it's probably going to be doing pretty significant damage as well. Weather Ball is a good weather-changing move, so it's doing pretty good damage no matter what the weather is as well. Encore for trapping stuff in, Haze for preventing some stat boosts, Icy Wind for some speed control, Earth Power for some coverage, Chilling Water to lower attack of mons on the opposite side, and Helping Hand to lend a helping hand to Urshifu and boost up those already very powerful moves. Politoed is sitting on this team as kind of my range setter to help enable Urshifu, and provide support to both Urshifu and the rest of my team that comes later. It's got a pretty deep utility move pool. I actually didn't name every single thing on the notable moves list. Like I said, it's going to be all day. But I didn't put everything on that list there. There's a pretty good amount of utility moves that Politoed has access to. It's got some decent bulk as well. And that 90 special attack is honestly kind of a lie when you think about it, because moves like Muddy Water and Weather Ball and Chilling Water and his other water-type moves are gonna be strengthened by Rain being on the field. I forget what the actual total percentage boost is, but I think that special attack of 90 actually looks a significant bit higher when you're using stab water moves, especially under Rain. So you've got a decent special attacker, a decent support mon in Politoed here to sit next to Urshifu in some later picks. Generally, I am Team Pelipper when it comes to Politoed versus Pelipper, like the debate of what Rain setter is better. Generally, I lean Pelipper, but like I said, I was trying to draft stuff that was new, do new modes and new stuff I haven't done before, and I was trying to draft Politoed specifically for its move it gets called Perish Song, which causes a Pokemon to instantly KO after 3 turns, no matter what health it's at or anything like that. And I was going to pair it with Gothitelle in order to do Perish Trap shenanigans. Unfortunately, Gothitelle got sniped, and then I was a little worried that having Politoed instead of Pelipper would actually be bad for me. But as the draft progressed and as I adapted, I actually ended up liking Politoed more than Pelipper on this team, which was a surprise to me for sure. Because, yeah, generally I don't think Politoed is actually better than Pelipper, specifically because Pelipper has a lot more roll compression. You can do a lot more with Pelipper in a short period of time than you can with Politoed. But I think for the team I drafted, Politoed is a much better fit and is very welcome on this team. So yeah, that is Politoed. It's going to support Urshifu very well. It's going to support the rest of my team very well. But you might be noticing a theme here already. We are very significantly weak now at this point to electric and grass types, because we got 2 water types on the field. So we're going to need a way to fix some of that here, which is what influenced pick number 3. So coming in at pick number 3, and also happens to be tier 3, going down the line there, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, is Raichu, which is a straight electric type Pokemon with abilities of Static and Lightning Rod. And Lightning Rod is a really fun ability for this team here, because that is going to redirect any electric moves that are incoming towards my water types and bring them into Raichu. They'll do no damage, and Raichu will get a special attack boost, which will turn that 90 special attack into a significantly better special attack if hit by some electric moves. Raichu's got a pretty good support move pool as well, with Fake Out to help out the gate damage on the first turn it's out, Thunder Wave and Nuzzle to help speed control. Like we talked about earlier, Urshifu's got 97 speed. It's pretty good. It's nothing amazing. It's nothing special. But with Nuzzle and Thunder Wave on the field, you got some speed control going there in order to make that speed that Urshifu's putting out a lot more significant. It also has things like Eerie Impulse to reduce incoming special attack damage, Light Screen and Reflect to reduce damage from both types, physical and special, coming in for all mons instead of just one specific target if needed. Play Rough for some coverage, Grass Knot for some coverage, Surf for some coverage, Wild Charge and Thunderbolt as its probably most significant moves of each type of attack, because it's a mixed attacker. It can do physical or special either way. Typically, you're probably leaning special with Raichu, especially if you're running Lightning Rod, because, you know, you're getting those special attack boosts, and the chance of those is always nice, and you're going to want to be using those if you're getting the boosts. It also has Feint, which is a move that helps you break through Protect, Wide Guard, a couple of those other, like, Protect moves, and that way, it can help other mons on my team that aren't Urshifu break through those things and get damage off anyway, which is why I thought it was kind of a notable mention there. Raichu's great. It's not an unfamiliar mon to me. I have drafted it a couple times before, and I've used it to relative success each time. And while it isn't a completely brand new Pokemon, I do definitely feel like there's a lot to do with it that I haven't done before. There's a lot of support it can offer this team, and it's just too good of a pick to pass up, especially at this point in the draft when I was noticing I'm gonna need that kind of protection and support from my other two picks. And it's 110 speed with Fake Out, so it's pretty speedy Fake Out. Its only weakness is ground. But ground types are kind of inconsequential to this team as a whole, especially right now, because Urshifu and Politoed take care of those pretty easily. Terra aside, barring Terra, of course, terastallizing is a factor in every match, but just at a base level, those types are covered, and Raichu, Politoed, Urshifu kind of complement each other very, very well. So yeah, it's a pretty useful mixed attacker. It's a good damage mitigator for my other two picks. So I think it's going to fit very comfortably on this team. And its ability Lightning Rod is going to help pretty significantly, especially into pick number 4, which was a pick I was kind of back and forth about for a second, but ultimately felt like it was pretty necessary, and I'm pretty happy with what I got. And we're going to get into that pick right now. But yeah, that's Raichu, tier 3, pick 3. Pretty good pick in my opinion. Can't wait to be using it. On to the next. Coming in at pick number 4, also a tier 3 Pokemon, is Talonflame, which is a fire and flying type. It's got abilities of Flame Body and Gale Wings, but Gale Wings is really the only relevant one there. It's got notable moves of Tailwind and Brave Bird, Acrobatics, Aerial Ace, Air Slash, and I say all of those flying moves first because it is important to note that Gale Wings, as an ability, gives Talonflame's flying type moves +1 priority as long as it is at full health, which functionally means as long as you have a healthy Talonflame on the field, you're going to get priority Tailwind out, you're going to get a priority Brave Bird out, or priority Air Slash, Acrobatics, whatever that flying stab might be, it will be priority as long as Talonflame is healthy. Which is great because that, more primarily for Tailwind, helps enable Urshifu and Raichu in order to be faster on the field than they initially would be, and helps beat out the enemy's Pokemon. Hit first, hit strong, make sure they don't have the ability to hit back sometimes if you can. And that's kind of its main goal here, priority Tailwind. And you might be thinking, Toby, Talonflame is a fire type. Fire types are weak in rain, in the rain weather. But, yeah, that's true. But there is something to note that Talonflame's fire stabs don't really matter as much as other fire types do. Because 9 times out of 10, especially on this comp, Talonflame is really just completing a Fire, Water, Grass core, the defensive typing. It's really just going to be used in order to set Tailwind, maybe be used as a switch in. Sometimes maybe you're going to click the fire stabs if you need them in a certain matchup, but in that point you just don't bring rain out when you need to click them. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't really think that Talonflame is the worst fire type to have under rain, because more often than not, you're not really needing its fire stabs, because Talonflame's like offense isn't really the best, so you're not going to end up clicking it as often. You're primarily going for like Will-O-Wisp and Tailwind and stuff like that. But yeah, Talonflame is good for the Fire, Water, Grass core. It's good for those defensive switch-ins. It's good for Tailwind to support Urshifu and Raichu. Raichu supports it with Lightning Rod, preventing those electric attacks coming in from it. It's a win-win scenario all around. Lots of synergy and everything going on with this team. But you may notice now, even with Lightning Rod. There is a significant electric weakness on this team. If Raichu goes down for whatever reason or isn't able to be brought on the field, this team just kind of gets fried. So after pick 4, I started really looking at that and realized, yeah, I've got the Tailwind, I've got the offense, I've got the Fire, Water, Grass core, but I'm still pretty significantly weak to electricity, and I really only have a fast end, and I need to start working on getting more things on the lower end of speed, as well as type resistances, which is what brings us into pick number 5. So coming in at pick number 5 is Ogerpon Teal Mask form, which is a tier 1 Pokemon. I did dip into my free agent points here now, which was 60 of them, I believe, in order to get this Mon. And I did that because I was afraid that if I waited any longer to get this Mon, that it was probably going to get taken from me at some point. So I figured pick it up now, that way it couldn't get sniped from me and then I'd be up a creek. So Ogerpon is just a straight grass type. It's got notable moves of Ivy Cudgel, which is a 100% accurate, 100 base power move. It's always stab no matter what form Ogerpon is, and it has a high critical hit chance. So it's got one extra stage of critical hit chance, which puts it at like a 33% critical hit chance for every single hit with that. It's got Horn Leech for recovery, Synthesis for recovery, Spiky Shield, which is basically just protect, but if a physical attack hits it, then that Pokemon takes damage. Brick Break to get through screens. It's also got Superpower. Knock Off to remove items. Play Rough for just some extra coverage. And as well as Follow Me, which is the best redirection move you can get in the game. There's only 2, Rage Powder and Follow Me, but Follow Me is the better one. So it's got a good mix here. It's got some good utility in Follow Me and Spiky Shield and Synthesis, some recovery with Synthesis and Horn Leech, and it's also a really, really powerful physical attacker with 120 attack and that signature move. And my main thing about drafting Ogerpon, especially now and not waiting until later, was that I knew as I went on in this draft, I was probably going to continue to draft a team with a physical bias, which basically would turn it into Intimidate bait, and Burn bait, and Charm bait, and all of that stuff. So, while I haven't really circumvented Burn yet here, I did notice that Ogerpon would be able to mitigate those stat reduction moves, and not even just Intimidate or Charm or the attack reducing moves, but even any type of stat reducing move, like Scary Face or Leer or Eerie Impulse or anything like that that's going to lower a stat, because Ogerpon's ability Defiant will proc whenever its stat is lowered. Any stat is lowered, and when that happens, it will get a 2-stage boost in attack. So basically means moves like Charm are useless because you are lowering my attack 2 stages, but then Defiant will proc and put it right back where it started. And then moves that only drop it 1 stage, or abilities like Intimidate, will actually actively hurt you because I'm going to get an attack boost from that anyway. So Defiant seemed kind of like a no-brainer to kind of help deter those stat-dropping moves and Intimidate, to kind of help keep my physical output as high as possible, because I knew that that physical bias was going to be there. And also, Ogerpon is a good addition to my fast mode because of that Embody aspect. When it Terras, Teal Mask gets a speed boost. So every Ogerpon form will have, when it Terras, this Embody aspect boost, which changes its ability to Embody aspect and then gives it a stat boost of some kind. This one specifically, Teal Mask gets a speed boost, which is great because that means it's going to be moving a lot faster when it's Terra'd. It's a great threat, especially with Tailwind on the field. Its typing is really good for resisting electric and grass types, which I was kind of currently having a problem with at this point in the draft. And its moves, Follow Me, would be really good for redirection to help take some of the pressure off of Urshifu or Politoed if it was next to it on the field. And yeah, I kind of think it worked out quite nicely as a pick on my team. Kind of rounded out that Fire, Water, Grass core, that defensive core. So switch-ins and stuff wouldn't be as dangerous as long as I brought them to the field. It's got pretty workable bulk. It's nothing crazy, but it's usable. It's decent. Which is good, especially with Follow Me, because then you can, take a couple hits, get a couple turns of redirection off, or fire off an attack and redirect, or anything like that. Yeah, Ogerpon just kind of felt like a really, really good pick for me. And I think it's going to do very, very well for me here. This is my third Ogerpon form that I'm drafting. Technically, I've drafted Ogerpon before, but I haven't drafted Ogerpon Teal Mask before, which technically is a different mon, because it does function pretty significantly different to Hearthflame and Wellspring, which are the other two that I have used so far. So, yeah, pretty happy with this pick. Glad it's on the team. Good defense, good offense. I think it'll work out very well for me. But that's kind of where I have to stop my fast mode. Because now I've got a lot of mons that are pretty significantly fast, good speed control and stuff for the top end, Tailwind, Thunderwave, Nuzzle, speed boosting abilities, and a lot of priority moves and stuff like that too. So I kind of felt like my fast mode was pretty complete, and I also still did have a pretty significant electric weakness, so I knew I wanted to help kind of mitigate that damage as well as move into start making a slow mode. That way I don't get screwed if Trick Room comes out and swaps the speed tiers, and then we're fucked. So to start out building my Trick Room mode, I decided to go with this pick. And coming in for my next pick, we have Golurk, which is a tier 4 Pokemon, a ground and ghost type, with abilities of Iron Fist and No Guard, because Klutz isn't a real ability in my opinion. So Golurk was kind of a pick I was tossing back and forth a lot, kind of heavily debating. I knew I needed to start a Trick Room mode. I knew I needed some slower mons. I knew I needed something that was defensively very good to pair with Urshifu and Politoed. Kind of as well, a good defensive type with Ogerpon as well. So I was really heavily debating getting this mon. And the reason I was debating it so much is because, honestly, I have seen Golurk do not very much in Generation 9. Even in its tier, I feel like it's not the best. But, I mean, in Generation 8 it was good. In Generation 9 it feels like it really has fallen off. But this is a mon that I have been looking at probably the past 3 out of my last 4 draft leagues. I have definitely heavily considered drafting Golurk, because on paper it seems very, very good. It just doesn't have any significant Gen 9 results thus far. But I'm hoping to change that. Because, like I said, it's good type synergy with the rest of my team thus far. It's the start of a Trick Room mode. It's one of my first TR sweepers, first of 3. And it's got a very, very deep move pool. That's one of my favorite things about Golurk, is that its move pool is redonkulous. There is all kinds of coverage that Golurk can run. And the fun thing about that coverage is that a lot of that coverage are punching moves, like Fire Punch, Thunder Punch, Drain Punch, Shadow Punch. Golurk gets, I think, literally every single punching move, which is really good for it, because its ability, Iron Fist, boosts the power of those moves by 1.2, I think. So running those moves feels really good because you're getting those boosts, and you're getting a lot of coverage out of them as well. In fact, it's one of the only mons that learns Shadow Punch. I don't think there's very many that do. So that's also very cool. So you get some good stab out of that as well. But yeah, it's got a super deep attacking move pool. It's got all kinds of coverage. And it does have like Imprison, which feels not like a bad move at all to run on a Golurk because of how deep its move pool is. There's definitely going to be some overlap with other mons on your opponent's side that you can imprison and lock off. Whether they're significant moves or not would remain to be seen between certain matchups, but I could see a usage case for Imprison. I also do see a usage case for No Guard. Its hidden ability, which means all moves that Golurk sends off will never miss, but every move incoming will never miss. So that makes a super powerful move like Dynamic Punch a little bit more appealing to bring if you need that type of power, which sometimes you might. And Golurk's stats on paper are pretty good. Significant attack stat, decent bulk, workable bulk. It's really not, it's not bad, but it's not good. And a fairly decent Trick Room speed. There are definitely better Trick Room sweepers in terms of speed tier, but this is good. This is workable. Yeah, that's what I have to say about Golurk, I think. I'm cautiously optimistic that it will work very well on my team, because it does, on paper, seem like a really, really good fit. It's just, I haven't seen it really perform, and I'm hoping I can be one of the first to make that happen, but that remains to be seen. And the other reason I picked it was because it looked good, and I knew Radial wanted it, so I sniped him before he could take it, because he confided in me that he wanted the Golurk, and I took it. Which is a shitty move of me, but I gotta look out for my team, so it's every man for themselves in situations like that, to be completely honest. But yeah, that's Golurk. That is pretty much all I have to say about it. But that's going to bring me into my Trick Room setter. Now that I have a sweeper, I got to get the setter. It's a little bit of a backwards order, but there were plenty of setters, so I figured I could wait 2 or 3 picks, whatever it was, before it came back to me to get my setter. So my setter is here. And coming in for my next pick, and also my Trick Room setter, or my primary Trick Room setter for this season, is going to be Slowbro Galar. Which is another tier 4 Pokemon. It is a poison and psychic type, with notable abilities of Regenerator, Quick Draw, and Own Tempo. Quick Draw gives you a chance to move first, no matter what the priority brackets or anything like are in the field at the time of the start of the turn. Quick Draw has a chance to proc and make you go first, no matter what. Regenerator obviously is, as per the name, allows you to regenerate health when you switch out. So if your Slowbro is significantly hurt, you can switch it out, get a good 30% health back, and bring it back out healthier later, which is always nice to use, especially on utility mons like this. And it's got some pretty good support moves with it as well. The first thing, not really a support move, but an attacking move, is Shell Sidearm, which does damage equivalent to whatever stat would do more damage to the opponent's Pokemon. So if it's got a really high defense stat, and it would take more damage from a special attack than a physical attack, Shell Sidearm will register as a special attack and deal damage like that, and vice versa. So it's a very good attacking move to run, especially if you don't really know what kind of sets are going to be run into your team on any given week, because that will basically hit at the most optimal damage percentage every time. Obviously, Trick Room, one of its notable moves. Yawn, Disable, Screens, Skill Swap, Weather Setting. It's got Heal Pulse for healing moves. It's got coverage moves in Flamethrower, Ice Beam, Hydro Pump, Earthquake, and the list goes on and on and on and on. Slowbro Galar has been on my radar for a very, very long time, but I've never really pulled the ripcord because it's always in the same tier as Slowking Galar, and I just think Slowking Galar is a fair bit better. But this time around, I noticed Slowbro Galar was in tier 4 and Slowking was in tier 3, and I could get better value out of Galar for tier 4. And I'm actually pretty happy with that. And it's a really, really good bulky Pokemon. It's got good defenses. It can go pretty much either way in terms of attack, physical or special, which is kind of beneficial to that shell sidearm there. It's got a really, really deep move pool, both coverage and attacking and utility-wise, and it makes it really easy to run any kind of set you want in any given week. There's no one set, one 4 moves fit all for this Pokemon. You can run pretty much anything. There's not really an optimal set necessarily in general. There will be one from week to week, but it's going to be very easy to find that with a Pokemon like this. And it's 30 speed Tiermon, which is really good for Trick Room. That's one of the lower ends of speeds, so it's going to be a significant threat under Trick Room, especially with those pretty good attacking stats for its tier. But yeah, that's Slowbro Galar. It's a good resist to grass, which is something that I was still kind of struggling with and something that Golurk wasn't fixing. I'm getting a little bit of a ghost weakness here, but that does get fixed a little bit later, so don't worry about that there. But yeah, that is Slowbro Galar. Pretty significantly powerful Trick Room Mon. Very good for its tier. I'm excited to use it. I've never used it in draft before. This is going to be really fun. And yeah, happy to have it. Alright, and coming up next in tier 5, we have Bastiodon, which, in my opinion, is just the better Probopass. You can fight me on that if you want, because there definitely is an argument for Probopass being better, I guess. Probably because Probopass can actually hit with attacking moves and do some amount of damage, while Bastiodon kind of relies on the non-attack stat moves like body press, reversal, stuff like that. But in my opinion, I think it's better just because of the significant amount more defensive bulk it has. So, Bastiodon is a tier 5 Pokemon. It's a rock steel type. It's got sturdy and soundproof as its abilities. Its most notable moves is going to be Body Press, Substitute, Iron Defense, Heavy Slam, Metal Sound, Wide Guard, Stone Edge, Reversal, Roar. And Bastiodon's an interesting one for me because I've always wanted to draft it, but I've never really felt justified in drafting it over something else. But I needed to build another type core. I needed to build a fantasy core. I didn't want to draft Probopass. I've never drafted Bastiodon before. It's one of my favorite Pokemon ever design-wise. Not that that plays a part into its competitive viability or anything like that, but I've always wanted to use it and have never really gotten the opportunity to, because I think it's honestly significantly better of a Pokemon than Rampardos is, which is its fossil counterpart. I think you can use this Pokemon a lot easier than you can use Rampardos. And the speed tier 30 is great for Trick Room, which is another thing that I needed. I needed something a little slower for Trick Room in case Golurk's speed wouldn't cut it, which a lot of times it might not because of dedicated Trick Room modes having the slowest possible mons they can get their hands on. So that was kind of my thinking there. It's a good bulky TR abuser. It's a good building block for my fantasy core. It truthfully, Steel Rock is a really bad typing, and honestly, I don't love its survivability chances, even with those defenses, because of that typing. But thank God we're in Generation 9. the generation of terastallizing and getting rid of those abysmal typings. So it's kind of where my head was at, was if I can use this Pokemon as a building block to a fantasy core, utilize Terra around it very well, it could go off in Trick Room a couple weeks. And I mean, look at it. The defense stat is so high it goes off the screen of my screenshot. I couldn't post the full thing on here because it went too far and I didn't have enough space to fit it, so I had to cut it off, which is it's fucking hilarious to me, to be honest. Yeah, I think it is, like I said, better than Probo Ass. It does have similar bulk, but I think it's a better speed tier, and I think it does make good enough use of its moves like body press, substitute, heavy slam, wide guard, and all that stuff to, you know, have a good enough use case to take it over Probopass. I kind of think it's an underpowered powerhouse, truthfully. I mean, I know even on paper it's kind of not the biggest threat on the field at any given point, but with that bulk and with Terra on its side, it's kind of the same thing as Golurk. It feels like it should be more powerful than it is, and I'm wanting to test that out for myself to see if I can bring out that potential and maybe make it pop off a couple weeks. We'll have to see. But yeah, it's a tier 5. You kind of get what you get in that tier, to be completely honest. So we weren't really expecting absolute power from it or anything like that, but I think it will work for me. Asterisk on the think part. But yeah, that's Bastiodon, start of the Fantasy Core. Real good bulk, good to pivot in and out for if I had to sacrifice something or if I Terra it for something. Yeah, that's it. That kind of completes the Trick Room mode, per se. I've got 2 pretty good sweepers. I've got a good setter, and also kind of a setter sweeper, I guess. It's a mix of both, really. And after that, I kind of started looking at, I need to make a Fantasy Core. Bastiodon was the start of it. With my Steel type, I need to get a Fairy and a Dragon type. So, I know what you're gonna say. I know you're going to rip me apart for this, but my Fairy type is... I chose Alchemy as my Fairy type. I know what you're gonna say. I know what I've said. I have told so many people I won't draft Alchemy again. I'm not addicted to Alchemy. I understand why Alchemy doesn't fit on teams as well as it used to in Gen 8. I know it's not as good as it used to be. But god damn it, guys, she pulled me back in one more time. And again, genuinely, she looks so good on this comp. Look at her go. Look at her, look at that gif. She's so happy to be here. She's ready to help support the Sunny Shore Star Raptors, to support me yet again as my queen. I don't have an addiction. I'm not infatuated with this Pokemon. What are you talking about? Why are you suggesting things like that? Anyway, Alchemy has 2 abilities, Aroma Veil and Sweet Veil. Sweet Veil prevents sleep, Aroma Veil prevents taunt and encore and torment and a couple other things. So it's a very good mon to have on the field next to Urshifu or to Ogerpon, because it really, really does help prevent those annoying status conditions like sleep or taunt or anything like that. It, like, depending on the matchup there. It's a good thing to have there, literally just as prevention of those status moves. But it's also no slouch in its move pool either. The most significant move, obviously, being Decorate, which will raise a Pokemon's attack and special attack by 2 stages. Which is insane, especially next to significantly strong attackers like Urshifu and Ogerpon, and it also can help boost up my special attackers like Slowbro and Raichu in order to make them a little bit stronger, Politoed as well, in order to make those special attack a little bit stronger. They're not as weak. I don't have as much of a physical bias there because I can get more damage out of my special attack through those. Helping Hand helps with that as well. He's got good coverage moves with Mystical Fire to help lower special attack. It's good fire it's good fire coverage. Energy Ball for the water types. On the opposite end of the field, the ground types. Acid Armor to boost those defenses. Charm in order to reduce incoming attacks from the opposite end. Fake Tears to lower those special defenses. That way my special attack does a little bit more damage. It's a no-brainer, and it's got recovering moves and bulky moves and all that stuff. It's amazing! I mean, come on. Look at that move pool. Seriously. Seriously. And it's a special tank. It's got pretty decent special attack compared to the rest of my mons, which I guess is kind of sad if 110 Spatak is my best Spatak. But, again, we can make that work with Decorate and Fake Tears and that stuff. It's gonna be great. And it's also a building block into my fantasy core. I'm really excited about that because now I have a legitimate use case for switch-ins and bringing Alchemy. So that's going to be great as well. I mean, come on. It's a no-brainer. And plus, if I'm drafting so much stuff that is not familiar to me, if I'm drafting so much new stuff, why not get something a little bit familiar? You know what I mean? Something that I can utilize, that is in my brain, that is wired, that I am used to, in order to have a baseline in prep. So I can go, okay, so this is my matchup. I need to start here. What can Alchemy do for Urshifu? What can Alchemy do for Ogerpon? What can Alchemy do for A, B, C, D? It's just a no-brainer, you know? I think Alchemy is actually going to support this comp really well. It's a good building block for a fantasy core. That bulk is better than it looks on paper, truthfully. Take it from the Alchemy expert. It may not look as good into like physical attacks on paper, but truthfully, those stats don't tell the full story. You can calc stuff and put resist berries on it, and it will live so much stuff. And fire off Helping Hands and Decorates, Charms, all kinds of stuff. So, I know I'm glazing her so much. But truthfully, I actually think in Generation 9, this is one of the best comps I have made to put Alchemy on. And I am not coping when I say that. I legitimately believe that. So, if I haven't sold you on Alchemy already, I don't think I ever actually will. But I think it's a good support piece for this team. I think it can do a lot of work for me here. More work than it's done in the past of Generation 9. Probably nowhere near the amount of work it does for me in Generation 8, but still a lot of work. So, that's Alchemy. I'm sorry I'm putting you through this again. I'm still ranting about Alchemy. I'm gonna stop now and go into my Dragon type to round out my fantasy core. Coming in for my Dragon type to round off my fantasy core, we have Cyclizar, which is a normal Dragon type, a tier 4 Pokemon with abilities of Regenerator and Shed Skin. Regenerator, again, being one of those goated abilities in my mind, and I really, really like it for that health recovery, especially for what Cyclizar here does. Cyclizar is a pretty speedy Pokemon, 121 speed, not great attack stat, but usable with 95. Everything else is kind of mid, so it is definitely where it belongs in the lower tiers. But I'm not really picking Cyclizar for its offense. I'm picking it for its defensive typing into my fantasy core, obviously, and also for its pivoting capabilities with Shed Tail, which, if you don't know what that does, it takes about half of Cyclizar's health away. Cyclizar switches out, and then another Pokemon can switch in with a substitute protection on it already out the gate. And that means it soaks up some damage before your Pokemon takes any damage. which is pretty good. So that means I get some pretty free switch-ins if need be. It means I've got some added protection to my mons that need to be brought in a bit safer and maybe are a bit frailer and can't take hits as well. So that was kind of my line of thinking there. That was almost pretty much literally my line of thinking there at this point in the draft. I had 3 picks left. There was only a few things that I knew I needed at that point, and I figured that just filling out those few things that I needed left would be good enough. And Cyclizar definitely helps with the fantasy core. Its move and shed tail is very, very good. It does have some capabilities like shift gear to up its attack and speed, so that could come into play. It has ways to alter its own speed with Trailblaze. It's got some good coverage moves, obviously, with like Wild Charge and Knockoff, Acrobatics. It can taunt, it can U-turn, it can outrage. It's just not primarily its goal on this team. You're not really wanting Cyclizar being the only one left doing any attacking on the field, because then you're probably in a pretty bad spot, especially with my team. So yeah, its primary purpose is really defensive typing, pivoting, safe switch-ins. It's got an okay move pool as well, but that's its main thing. I don't really have very much to say about Cyclizar. I have been looking at it for a while, but I've never really pulled the ripcord on it because it truly does seem like that's kind of the only thing it does. But luckily for Cyclizar this time around, that's the only thing I really need it to do on this team. And kind of made it a good fit, especially in this back end of the draft. So I'm satisfied with Cyclizar here. I think I can make it work. It's just kind of an extra thing to help out here in the back end. And that's really all I have to say about Cyclizar. It's a good Pokemon, it's just a rather unremarkable one in my mind. And there's always at least one on my drafts that I'm like, there's one Mon that I'm like, you'll probably come a couple times, I'll probably use you, you'll do your job, but I don't really think anything special either way. This is definitely the Mon that I'm most indifferent about. But yeah, that's Cyclizar. Good addition to the speed tier, good switch-ins and all that stuff, so it'll serve its purpose. And rounding off my draft were my 2 tier 6 picks, which in this case were Masquerain and Sudowoodo. I put them both on the same slide here because they're tier 6s. They're not really gonna be very significant into my draft plan as a whole. I guess your really only goal with a tier 6 is to make sure it can do something if you need it to on a given week, which I think I did. So the first one that I picked was Masquerain, which is a tier 6. It's a bug flying type. It's a secondary tailwind setter. It does have some moves like Chilling Water and Bug Buzz and Quiver Dance, so there is some setup potential there. Yeah, like I said, secondary tailwind setter. The main reason I actually drafted Masquerain is because I noticed I hadn't drafted Intimidate yet, and I like to have some form of Intimidate on my teams just so I have a little bit of damage mitigation going on. And at this point in the draft, there really wasn't much else I could do to get Intimidate other than Masquerain, which is fine enough because I think Masquerain is a good defensive type with bug and flying. It's good for the small fighting weakness I had going on in the back end of my draft. So the bug flying type really helps resist that. And yeah, that's really it for Masquerain. I mainly drafted it for the Intimidate there in the event that I needed it, and maybe to set Tailwind in the back if I had to. There's not really anything else there. And then the other one that I drafted was Sudowoodo, also a tier 6, just a straight rock type. It does have Sturdy, Rockhead, and Rattled, which, in my opinion, are 3 completely usable abilities. depending on the situation that you're in. Sturdy is obviously in general good. Rockhead is very good for the very large amount of recoil moves that Sudowoodo gets. And Rattled is good if you get hit with a ghost type move or whatever. Your speed increases drastically, I think, which I do have a couple mons that could do some low power ghost moves into it if I had to and give it a speed boost. Not that I'm really doing that very often or bringing Sudowoodo super duper often, but it is an option that is there, and I do think Rattled works. And like I said, it has quite a few like recoil moves like Double Edge and Wood Hammer and Head Smash and a couple others I think that are on its move list that I didn't list. But Rockhead helps negate the recoil from those, so that's good. I kind of mainly drafted it as a backup TR Mon because at this point I don't really need much else. I've kind of gotten everything that I wanted, so I figured maybe have something else to reinforce its Trick Room mode if I had to. And in the event that Bastiodon looked really bad into a matchup, maybe Sudowoodo looks a little bit better just because it has an actual attacking stat and fairly decent bulk with moves that support that actual attacking stat and its abilities that help remove recoil and stuff, so it can hit a little bit harder in Trick Room if Bastiodon can't. Basically, it's kind of my support to Bastiodon specifically because I want Bastiodon to succeed for some reason. And it also has Copycat, which could be funny. I mean, there's some interesting sets you could do with it there. That's pretty much it. They're tier 6s. They're meant to do one or two things, maybe a season. So that's kind of the thought process there, was maybe they'll get used, and if they don't, I really won't have my feelings hurt too much about that. But yeah, with those two drafted, that marked the end of my draft, and my team was complete. And honestly, I think I really like the end result. So that is the end of my draft for this season, and I just wanted to give my overall thoughts on that really quickly. So, like I had said at the beginning of the video, I was trying to draft something that I had not done before. I was trying to draft mons I hadn't drafted before, modes I haven't done super often, anything like that. I think I really did succeed on that. I think pretty much 10 out of 12 Pokemon that I have on my team, I have actually literally never used in draft before. So that is a breath of fresh air for me. Something new to try for a season, you know, then now I won't be bored with what I'm playing with now. Get to experiment a little bit. And I do actually really, really like how it turned out. At the start, when I drafted Politoed and then lost Gothitelle and didn't get my Perish Trap mode, I was actually really worried because I thought that I was going to be stuck with an inferior Rain Setter and would have to sacrifice that roll compression for a lot of other mons and cover each mon's subsequently's ass with my picks after that. But that didn't really end up happening. I honestly feel like the more I thought about it and the more my draft went on, that Politoed was the correct pick over Pelipper anyway, and it turned into something really, really awesome. But yeah, I realized how good it was as I was drafting it. And suddenly all that fear and anxiety about it being bad just kind of went away after like pick 4. And I think it's a pretty strong contender for top 5 teams in the league. I definitely do. I don't think it's top 3 or anything like that. It's probably 5th if it was top 5 at all, but I could probably see 6th or 7th as a good argument for it as well, looking at the other teams in the league. But I definitely think it is top half of the division. I definitely think so. It has really good damage output. It has, at least on the physical side, has pretty solid speed tiers and good speed control to pair with it. There is actually surprisingly a pretty good amount of bulk invested throughout the team itself, which isn't necessarily what I was going for. I was going for a more aggressive type of play style this time around. Maybe not necessarily hyper offense, but definitely more aggressive, bulky offense. And I wasn't expecting there to be as good of bulk on each of these mons that I picked, but after looking at them and analyzing them more in depth after the draft, I kind of realized that I kind of unintentionally drafted mons that were a little bit bulkier than I was expecting, so there is actually a pretty okay amount of bulk on my team as well. So I guess I have aggressive, bulky offense, if that's a thing. It's not really hyper offense, but it's not really bulky offense either. It's kind of something in the middle, which I think I'm gonna be pretty comfortable with. I think I'm gonna get used to it pretty fast. And like I said, most things on the team are new to me, but there are a couple mons like Raichu and Alchemy that will help me have some familiarity in prep. It'll make my prep a little bit easier because I'll have them as a baseline. I can work with them and off of them, and it should be fairly easy. And admittedly, on the special side of things, I don't have as much power as I do on the physical side of things, but things like Decorate and Fake Tears and some water moves that are being boosted by rain, that should help offset that a little bit. So truthfully, I think it will be fine. But yeah, I mean, that's really all I have to say. I think the team itself is so good. I'm really looking forward to playing with it. I think I'm going to have so much fun this season, and I'm really, really excited. And with that, we have come to the end of my GLDL Season 6 draft analysis. I want to say thank you everybody for watching. That's the team on screen as a whole. I hope you guys like it. I definitely like it. It looks like it's going to be fun to use. I hope you guys will have fun watching it. And you can watch that on my channel, as I will stream every single one of my GLDL Draft League matches this season. I tend to anyway, but, you know, I just figure I should say that, because some people don't. Some people will go on a losing streak and just not record anymore. So I'm not that type of person. Only time that I'm really prevented from doing that is like technology issues or something like that, which it does happen. I had some tech issues this morning trying to get this video to record, so you never know. Depends on scheduling and timelines and blah blah blah, but for the most part I will stream those matches, and you can count on me to deliver you more and more content later on as we go. Thank you guys for all of your support on my return. It means the world to me, and I will catch you very, very soon. Peace.